So today I'm talking to Nathan Baranowski, who's the Managing Director of Digital Wonderlab, and we're going to be discussing a few topics around digital transformation. So Nathan, last 12 months have been different, to say the least, and focus, or certainly from the clients I'm talking to, focus on cost is pretty high at the moment. In your sort of experience dealing with companies, what are the main reasons that prevents a company sort of embarking on or sort of furthering their digital journey?
Good question. I think there's kind of three areas which seem to pop up the most. The first one is kind of not knowing what you don't know. So I'm not quite sure where to start. I don't know where I am on my journey anyway, and therefore the kind of inability to want to be able to kick off and move. I think the third one is that sort of fear of cost, the fear that actually digital is going to cost me a fortune and I can't afford it, and it's not somewhere where I can be. And then I think that the final one really is often actually the kind of the barrier of the IT team, who kind of feel that actually we're fine and we're doing what we need to be doing, and sort of surrounding the rest of the business in mysticism really that prevents that kind of opportunity to embark on it and be able to do things well.
Good stuff. And obviously, if we just sort of focus in on, because I know both of us operate quite a bit within healthcare, particularly within the charitable space. Now, I know, as you probably know, and I think it's been quite widely reported, some of the charities have not fared quite as well in terms of revenue, in terms of donations, because they don't really have much of or a strong digital presence. What do you see as the main consequences of an organisation not embarking on their digital journey or improving their digital maturity?
I think fundamentally, kind of, I think the question now has to be kind of, if you're not digital, kind of, what are you going to be doing, and that business risk and the reality of it. Customers, be they donors, be they service users, however you wish to describe them, expect there to be a digital means of engaging. And certainly through this last 12 months with the pandemic, we've all become quite digitally native in some respects in the way that we communicate, and hence in this conversation also right now. And I think kind of that need to be able to do that in the right way, but also set that expectation. If we think about digital from a maturity point of view, think about it in terms of our relationship with digital, rather than necessarily being about, do I have or don't I have digital? But actually, what is the role that we want digital to play in our organization? Be that through our operating models, be that through how we engage with our customers, be that how we converse internally, whatever that might be. Actually, what is that role that it plays, and how do we want that to play out? And that could be everything from, we've got very simple systems that allow us to move information from A to B, or capture it in a spreadsheet as the simplest version probably of a piece of a database, all the way through to the use of artificial intelligence to allow us to gain insight and understanding. And that's a huge spectrum. And maturity really allows us to understand that relationship and what we want and what's important, but fixing that back to our business goals and our organizational needs. So, if you're an organization and you're a small charity trying to deliver something, you don't need AI necessarily to deliver that. If you're looking for donor experiences online, then integrating that donor experience in. Saying we have a donor experience is one thing. So most charities struggle with this area because their web experience is terrible. So we've got a donor platform, but as soon as I go on it, it's not mobile responsive. It sends me off somewhere else. It's got 15 clicks in order to fill in a form where I just want to give you some money, and it's too hard to do. And we need to keep that really easy, but also not giving them the choice. Actually, do I want to give you a one-off donation? Do I want to pay by direct debit? Do I want to give you a recurring giving? Allow that to happen within a couple of clicks. And the world of mobile is really important in that too. So helping people to that. Obviously, for many charities, and one of the things, and we've had a few conversations over the last 12 months with the numbers around actually how do you deliver really good fundraising experiences akin to the mass participation events. We've all been hit by that. There isn't a London Marathon anymore. It's kind of, these things don't exist, but they've become virtualized. But those events, if they're not there, they don't create that same level of participation and that increase in funding, which is so important for many charities. So how can you create those? What could they look like? We've been talking with one organization where we're looking to create an experience of going up Mount Everest, but actually doing that in a way which enables team building and works for corporates. And I think rethinking the use of digital and the blend with teams to do that. So great example for us internally at Digital Wonderlab at the moment, we're circumnavigating the UK by walking, virtually running, whatever it might be, but we're just doing that using a product called Challenge Hound. So it's just a really easy way of doing something.
Yeah.
None of this stuff needs to be difficult. I think
Yeah.
for me, maturity is about starting and then getting on that journey.
Good stuff. And I suppose you've been in around digital transformation for many years. Can you provide some tangible examples of where you've seen transformation, positively affect an organization, whether that's, increasing revenue, cost, customer experience, but something that's actually, tangible?
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of worked across large transformations, a sort of multi-million-pound, many multi-year type programs, all the way into sort of small change really. And I think kind of give a couple really actually. So recently we just launched for Bristol Credit Union, who one of the largest cooperative credit unions here in the southwest, and taking them pretty much from what I'd class as sort of the 1990s in terms of back-end technology, where they had a terrible user experience for new members trying to come in and understand. It is always through to their back office processes were clunky, sort of the beautiful swan type experience. It wasn't even particularly beautiful. It's probably ugly duckling experience, actually, one might say, in terms of what we experienced. And then the data was terrible. So actually just a lot of work going on and not being able to actually enable someone to access affordable credit. And what we've been able to do is actually transform that. So through really much more mobile first, user-orientated experience, we're able to actually say, okay, this is what a customer needs to know, asking the information that is really needed in order to be able to make that assessment and be able to give someone a decision very quickly. So from a customer's point of view, I now know I can use Bristol Credit Union and they'll be able to give me a decision really quickly on that. But also I can access my money and my information if I've got a savings account instantaneously through an online portal. The back end of that, a huge amount of automation. So where the lending team would then spend 4 hours moving stuff into spreadsheets, going off manually, engaging with credit providers, understanding credit scores, identifying, doing ID checks, and all the other things that need to go in that, all being automated. So suddenly, actually, through system processing, actually enable them to engage with the people they need to talk to. So those that are falling between not a firm yes, but as okay, but we need to talk to you, spending the time with them in order to actually put that energy into those areas. The benefit for them is fundamentally one of they are scaling, they're looking to offer more money, more lending, bring in more members, do that with the same number of people. So do not need to increase, but also just cutting out waste. So waste of non-valued activity has been really key in that project. And that's, we only went live in November with that project, and it's already proven its worth in terms of what it's now delivering, and enable them to begin that journey. More widely, I'd say kind of into smaller space actually is with a small charity called Cerebral Palsy Cymru, who used to be known as Bobath Wales, and we were doing a piece of work with them to help them to think about their strategic position, but also just help them to move on. So 2 parts to that. One was branding, so getting them to a position where their brand was engaging to their demographic, but also helping them to step forward. And during the pandemic, we'd started this bit of work, and then the pandemic hit, and they kind of paused and said, "Oh, we're not going to do this. We're going to need to wait because it might send the wrong message." And actually, kind of the conversation over is sort of the reason you started this is because you can't engage with people in the way that you currently operate. Actually, we don't want to be pausing. We should be accelerating.
Yeah.
Actually helping them to get to that point, launching that brand, and be now able to position through their website. They now have a fantastic portal where donors can support each other and they can donate and they can do things. They've been able to have conversations they could never have, and actually really genuinely kind of engage in a way with donors that if we hadn't done that, they would have probably have gone under during that pandemic. I think it's kind of real shift in that. And then probably much more larger one to end on really would be the Disabilities Trust, where we took them on a 5-year journey. So Disabilities Trust is a large charity providing health and social care all the way from acute mental health hospitals all the way through to in community support. And the program really was kind of began on a position of they actually had very little technology. Despite being such a large organization, it was built on a sort of a 200 user base rather than a 2000 user base, which they were. and was failing and crumbling, into a world where actually then digital was at the heart of what they did and how they managed and what they did. And it was a long journey, 5 years, to get it to a base level foundation. They're still very much on that journey and by no means finished. And I think for me, there's a real example in there in terms of, well, one, if we'd never done that, the pandemic happened, we invested massively in infrastructure. It just simply carried on working. It's kind of that aspect. And when you're an organization of that size, being able to know the systems will work and they will do what they need to do is really important. And I think 2 days after we had just migrated to a new data center, as part of that, we had backups, real live backups in place and live replication. And the servers went down and we were able to carry on, which was wonderful. And if that happened 2 days prior, we would have been completely down in the dark and not be able to run at all. So for me, there's something around, the efficiency, the ability in there, as well as then into the impacts. And I think that's really key with that. And finally, just kind of some of the work we do with smaller charities, really around kind of enabling the direct impact to end users. So for a charity called Deaf Plus, we help them to really think about how they deliver their next generation of their advice line. So providing digital information and advice to people who are deaf, but also giving them access to an advice line in a way that allows the end user to do that in a really simple and easy way. That's allowed them to scale fourfold in their delivery of that, where they would actually traditionally be providing a lot of information processing through their advice line. Actually, that is now information readily available. And when I need advice and I generally need to talk to someone, I can then connect with someone, but also I can connect with them by simply getting hold of them at the right point. So there's a Calendly integration there to help them to do that in the right way and keep that simple, rather than our phone up or I've got access to your account and we try and get hold of you. It was very haphazard in that regard. So just delivering that scale really is really important. So I'd always say digital with purpose and that has good impact is the stuff that really make a difference. So either efficiency and effectiveness or creating much more better experiences for end users to engage, be that internal, so your staff or your volunteers, or external, be that your core stakeholders from a customer point of view, or your donors, or however you wish to describe. But just really thinking about those areas and allowing it to help to do that.
Brilliant. There's a nice range of examples there and different outcomes, which is fascinating. So if the company's kind of sat there thinking, really want to embark on our journey, it's not an easy question, Nathan, but what simple steps might a company take to at least explore the beginning of their digital journey?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I guess a couple of us. We've actually just embarked on releasing an ebook on digital strategy and kind of digital maturity. So how to go around that process, which does outline some steps and things. But you're right, it's not a simple thing. You can't just go, I want to go digital. How do I do it? And there's two bits I would say are really important. One is asking the question in simple terms: what are we doing, and why are we doing it? And how is digital being used in order to enable us to do that? And if we are using digital, are we using the best digital in order to do that? And that's probably the beginning part for that. The next bit really is to say, well, where are we today? So where are we today in terms of the things, in terms of our organization? So some sort of digital audit to understand your technological and digital landscape, both in terms of how you're using it, so your systems, your data, and that sort of things, but also your people. So we'd always say kind of digital needs to be grounded in people, process, and technology, and understanding the culture of that, but also your customers' expectations on you. You might be in a place where your customers don't really require a significant amount of digital at the moment. So the demand may not be there, but the appetite to move may be. So you're forward planning versus that you're on the back foot. And then using things like maturity models to really help to understand that are really useful tools to gauge from your business strategy, what is it that we're trying to achieve and what's important to us? So what is both hurting us and painful? Where are our risks, but also where are our ambitions? And using the maturity model to help us to then decide, well, okay, where are we today and where do we want to get to? And once we've understood that, we can then start to build a bit of a roadmap and an understanding of a vision of where we're trying to get to and deliver on that. But it's Yeah, it isn't an easy fix, but it's definitely a journey, and that journey needs to start by making some simple steps. I think most organizations try to take on too much too quickly,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also try to go big very quickly. And I think
Yeah.
transformation doesn't need to be that. If anything, the pandemic has shown everyone that actually
Mm-hmm.
by doing things simply, by doing things quickly, and having that curiosity to try will really help. And we've all been through a huge transformation in that we now all pretty much spend still most of our time on video calls. That actually, that was foreign to
Mm-hmm.
many people
Yeah.
and non-existent in the main pre the pandemic. That actually we can do these things, and actually the people fear factor is not so much a key player in it, but
Mm-hmm.
recognize where they are. So know
Yeah.
your customers would be my
Yeah.
fundamental one,
Mm-hmm.
and then actually driving forward in terms of understanding that intent. But ground whatever you're doing in digital always back to your business strategy and your organizational need.
Yeah.
It's not one of kind of he who shouts loudest gets, I think would be the wrong way round.
Mm-hmm.
But recognize also you have to start with your foundations. Digital works in the same way as anything. And if you think about a house has good foundations. If you're building a 10-story house, you need bigger foundations than if you're
Yeah.
building a bungalow. And we need to think about that. And those foundations are really about your data, your people, your infrastructure, the core bits of digital that need to be in place in order to allow that growth and those
Mm-hmm.
things to happen. So it's not much point thinking about adopting big data and AI if you don't understand good data practice. It's
Yeah.
kind of the sequencing that we have to do. But and bring in people who can help you to have those dialogues,
Mm-hmm.
like myself and others, but also
Mm-hmm.
use your team. So we always people in those teams who are strong digital advocates, and
Yeah.
to help to enable that is really important.
Brilliant. Thank you.